of different piping techniques for our German chocolate cake. So I have a fluted tip, and this is a number 23. It might be an 03 for you. This is actually 823. Again, it's going to depend on your brand. But as you can notice, it's really not that large because we are just decorating a 6-inch cake for our instance here. So hopefully my angle on here is all right. So with my left hand, kind of using it to steady my piping tip here. So for a rosette, I'm just going to start to squeeze gently, kind of almost like a C. I stop piping here and just kind of pull it. That way you don't get those long tails. Stop piping. And this is our rosette. And what you're aiming for is for them to all be the same size. All right? Pull that back a little bit. So we're gonna do the rosettes on the top, and then on our bottom, we're just gonna do a simple shell border. And in order to do that, I'm gonna move this here. For shell border, again, kind of using my left hand to steady. I start piping, I come up just a little bit, and then I stop piping and drag. See how I'm coming up? I stop pushing, I just kind of drag it there. Now it's not an exaggerated motion. You can also, if you're not used to that when you're starting out, just kind of give it a little push, stop piping and pull. I'll give you kind of a little different shell border. So notice I'm not doing any exaggeration. I'm just kind of piping, pipe, stop, and pull. All right. On this one here, kind of pulling up just a little bit and coming back down. Again, this is all about practice. And that's just kind of our basic shell border. So our shell border we're gonna have at the bottom border of our cake, and then we'll just do small rosettes on the top. Now you don't wanna mix your borders too much, but in this case, we just have two different ones. Here I'm going to show you how to make a pearl border with a basic buttercream. Now the buttercream I have is softened butter and sifted powdered sugar and a touch of vanilla extract. And it's 2 pounds of sifted powdered sugar to 1 pound of softened butter. It's always 2 parts powdered sugar to 1 part butter. Add your extract for flavoring, and you're good to go. So you can adjust that recipe as to how much you need. First, I have just some parchment on the table here to practice on. We have our piping bag. To open that, open from the top here, fold it over like a cuff, almost like a cuff on your chef coat. I cuff it over my non-dominant hand here, my left hand, and that way I can kind of use it almost like, call it my puppet, and you'll see in just a second why that comes in handy. Now I just have a plain tip, just a round plain tip. This is an 802. I'm just gonna let it kind of fall right down there. I don't want to push it down. I just want to leave it kind of hanging the top here where it's still kind of loose. Now, I'm gonna go about 1/4 of a way away from it, and I could just slide this right down nice and easy. And notice how the piping bag just comes about 1/4 of the way down from the top of the tip. Now back to kind of filling your piping bag. Take a little bit of my buttercream, and I can use my hand to kind of wipe it off. I just want a little bit more. We don't want to overload our piping bag, then we don't have as much control. And as the buttercream sits in your hands through the piping bag, it can become warm. All right? I have the top here, so I'm just kind of pushing it down. I can feed a little bit out, so I make sure I don't have an air pocket. I'm just going to twist that top. Just going to seal it in. Now you can use a rubber band to hold it in place, or even a binder clip works fine. All right. Now, I'm using my dominant hand to pipe, and I use my left hand to just kind of steady it, all right? So I just kind of put it on my other hand here, and even on the piping bag itself, and as I pipe, it keeps it steady. Rather than trying to do this, and you might be a little shaky, you don't have as much control. So at the beginning, I always suggest using your left hand to just kind of steady your right hand. And that goes for piping, for writing, just about anything you're using with your piping bag. Now for a pearl border, it's exactly what it kind of means. Just kind of looks like a little dot, a little pearl, but it should be pretty smooth. So to do that, notice how I'm just hovering over the paper here. I squeeze just a little bit, I stop squeezing, and I just kind of make almost like a little C. This way I don't have what we call kind of that Hershey kiss, that little tail that pops up. We don't want that. All right, we want it to be nice and smooth. So again, I'm going right next to it to make a border. We want the pearls to touch, almost like a necklace. So again, just kind of hovering over, squeeze just a little bit, stop squeezing, and make a little C to cut off that tail. Now you also want your pearls to be about the same size. So no need to go fast, just nice and slow. As you keep practicing, you'll start to get a rhythm and a little more confidence. And at that point, it's when you can start to go a little faster. So notice how our border looks here. So again, you don't want to be on the paper. So what that does is it flattens it. It doesn't give it a nice round shape. You don't want to just keep piping and you get an elongated, you get that tail. So again, I'm just piping a little bit, stop piping, and make a little C. You want nice, consistent sizes. You don't want something where you started out, you're doing well, and then all of a sudden, you got one a little too big. All right, nice, consistent sizes. So hover over, stop piping, and make that little C. Now it may take you through all your buttercream to finally start to get that rhythm, and that's all right. And there we have our pearl border, just very nice, simple, classic border. Here's how we make a shell border. So I'm using a number 23 tip, fluted or open star tip, which you have in your kit. Again, it ends with, this one's at 823. Yours might vary in the number, but the 3 will give you an indication of what you're looking for. So for a shell border, before that, again, notice I did not fill my piping bag that much, about halfway. Give it a little twist on the top. Again, you can use a rubber band or a binder clip. You can use that as well. Notice I kind of choked down a little bit on my bag too. Again, using my left hand. Sorry, I have to angle this a little bit. So for our shell border, let me just show you kind of what it is. So it just kind of looks like little shells connecting each other. There's a little bit of a wave there. You see this, it's a very traditional border that we put on cakes. Kind of see it everywhere. Now, to make these, Again, I kind of use my left hand to steady. I'm going to kind of start at one point, push forward, and then kind of come back. Now I'm not doing an exaggerated, it's very slight. So I'm just kind of coming up, coming down, I stop piping, and just kind of drag it. That kind of forms that little tail there. All right, I need to connect, so again, notice I start right about here, kind of come up, down, give it a little drag. Again, I stop piping, I stop squeezing once I kind of get to my end here. All right. You get another fresh piece of paper and continue to do that for you. Now, as I was talking about the exaggerating, what I see a lot of when people first start this, even I did the same thing. I thought it was more of an exaggeration where I was doing this, right? That's not it. And you may find that that's what you're doing at first. That's okay, but as long as you recognize that that's not the correct way. Again, just kind of pushing forward and coming back on top of itself. Not as exaggerated as you think it is. Just giving it that slight little wave. All right. So this is just kind of that exaggerated. We don't want that. Again, I start here. I just kind of push it forward just a little bit, come up, stop piping, give it a little drag to make that tail. And I'm just going to come right in front of it. Notice where I kind of start to connect it. You can see the difference. That one's going to fall over. And that's our shell border. That's another view for you. So again, you want to keep practicing it. You're not always going to get it on your first try. If you do, that's awesome. But you have to keep at it. You have to keep practicing. When I first started these, I certainly did not have them looking as nice and as straight as these are. One other thing, you want to make sure that you're nice and even, just as your other borders. You don't want one that's this size and then all of a sudden you drag it or it gets too big. You want nice consistency. Consistency is what you're looking for. All right? So again, it's all about doing it over and over and over again. Practicing, practicing to get that consistency and that perfection. I'm going to show you how to do a couple different rosettes for your cakes. You can use this sometimes as a smaller border. You can use it as decoration. Just depends on your application. So again, I have this fluted tip. It's a number 823, just the open star / fluted tip. I have my simple buttercream, just about halfway filled. Give that a little twist. Now for a closed kind of rosette, again, I'm using my left hand to kind of keep myself steady. I'm basically kind of doing like a little circle here. Start here, I come up, and as I come to my end here, I stop piping and just kind of give it a little pull. That will eliminate any kind of tail. All right. Stop piping. Stop squeezing. Just kind of give a little flick. Those are our little rosettes. Now you can connect these to make a little bit smaller border. Now, depending on the size cake, you may want to make your tip a little bit smaller so that your rosettes are not as large. So I'm just kind of overlapping my rosettes. You want to try to keep them to start and stop on the same, where the tail is ending on the same place. So there we kind of have a larger rosette border. Now, some things not to do is to continue piping, and then you have that long tail. That's why you want to stop piping right about here, where you're going to leave off. Go right there, and just kind of pull it away from you. All right. Another thing you don't want to do is kind of like this, where it's coming up. That's a different piping technique, more for cupcakes and such. But just for a single rosette, nice and clean. Now, for a more floral looking rosette, kind of go from the inside to the outside. All right. I'm not really coming on top. That's a little bit larger. And again, I stop squeezing and piping and just kind of trail it off. Now, this is more of an open rosette. It looks more like a flower. A little bit flatter. And last, using our same tip, we're going to do just a basic star border. Again, using my left hand to steady myself, I just kind of hover over the paper, just squeeze, stop, and lift up. Squeeze, stop, and lift up. Now I want my stars to be the same size, so really watch your consistency there. Squeeze, stop, and lift up. That's your star. Now again, you don't want it to be on the paper. So I'll give you a little different look. You want it to have a little more dome to it. Now, if you have to refill your piping bag to continue, so if you notice I still have a bit of buttercream right on the bottom here. So again, just going to cup that out to refill. Now, what I want to do is push out kind of the old buttercream that I had in here to get to the new. So you're going to see there's a big air pocket here, and as you're doing your border, you don't want that air pocket to come out. So I would put this into my bowl, but just to kind of show you here, see, that's that air pocket, and now I can start. So now I won't get that little splatter when I continue with my borders. Keep going. All right. So that's your star border. As you're practicing your borders, you can always reuse your buttercream. You don't need to throw this out. So all I'm going to do is just with my spatula, swipe it up and put it back into my bowl. Then I can get a fresh piece of parchment paper and reuse my buttercream. I can even reuse on top of this if I need to. Get a little bit cleaner, and I can start again.